From KUOW in Seattle, welcome to Soundside. I'm Libby Dankman, and welcome to our first debate of the 2025 election season. Yeah! We're talking about the future of a big job today. King County Executive, whichever candidate is elected to this position, will oversee the Sheriff's Department, manage public health, transportation, public housing, and jails. According to King County's website, they'll lead one of the largest regional governments in the United States. The last time we had an open race for King County Executive, Barack Obama was about to become president for the first time, and everyone was talking about this new movie set in Washington state called Twilight. Today, we have two county leaders vying for the job. Claudia Balducci is a member of the King County Council. She represents District 6, which includes Bellevue, Mercer Island, and Redmond. She is an attorney who previously served as mayor of Bellevue. She was a Bellevue City Council member and director of the Department of Adult and Juvenile Detention for King County. And Girmay Zahilay is chair of the King County Council, representing District 2, which includes Skyway, Allentown, and the U District. He's also an attorney and founded the nonprofit Rising Leaders, which offers mentorship and leadership training for middle school students. Please join me in welcoming our candidates tonight to the debate.
Thank you.
So before we get going, I want to go through a few rules here. For each question, we are going to have 90 seconds for candidates to answer. For most questions, we will then include a 45-second rebuttal. And to keep track of the allotted time, we're trying to move this pretty quickly along. Voters are busy. They want to get down to business. If you go significantly over time, you might hear this. You also might hear this. Yep. Or even this. Nice.
That's my favorite.
Just some like Pacific Northwest classics to keep you on track. So everybody good to get going? Good to get started?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. Question 1. This is a question from a listener, and we are already breaking format a little bit here because you're each going to have the same question and 90 seconds to respond. This one is about defining your differences. You're both county council members. You're both Sound Transit Board members. You're both lawyers. As the stranger wrote in their endorsement earlier this year, you are both, quote, pretty politically aligned and did a good job at least pretending that you love each other. So Sandra from Bellevue asks, what distinguishes you from each other politically? And if you had to pick one issue that defines your race, what is it? Girmay Zahilay, we are going to start with you, and you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I do love Claudia, and I wish the best for her. I think she would make a great executive as well. It is real. The way that I define my campaign is one that is built around collective action. I'm running not just as me, but as my potential to inspire lots of people to work together to solve problems. And so when I think about it from that perspective, the requirement that King County is going to have to work with Washington State to solve some of our most intractable challenges. Our coalition includes the governor, the attorney general, and more state-level elected officials than any other candidate. If King County is going to have to work with our federal delegation to protect our region from the federal government, unfortunately, our coalition includes both Pramila Jayapal and Adam Smith. If we have to work with the King County Council on issues regarding the budget because they control the purse strings, I'm the only candidate endorsed by any current or former council members. If we're looking toward working with frontline communities who are impacted by the issues that we're seeing on a scale at a national level, whether that is immigrant rights or the assault on reproductive health care or the assault on workers, we have the support of Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates, Pro-Choice Washington, One America, MLK Labor, representing 220,000 workers around the region. And so fundamentally, my campaign is not about me, it's about us and our ability to work together to solve problems.
All right. And Claudia, same question to you. What distinguishes you from your colleague here, and what issue is at the forefront of your campaign?
Thank you so much. I also want to validate the stranger's statement. We get along very well. We've been praised in formats like this for people will say it's so unusual to see opponents speak well of each other, but so it's a true thing. I think the primary thing that distinguishes the two of us is the record of experience and the ability to deliver results that I bring to this race. you're going to hear a lot of promises on the campaign trail, a lot of things that we have to do, a lot of big challenges. It's a $10 billion budget every year, and we have very big issues to challenge. Are we doing well enough on homelessness, on housing affordability, on public safety, on transit? These are big rocks that need to be pushed up very steep hills, and my background and my endorsements demonstrate that I have the ability to do that. So when we make promises, I will ask, how do you know that a candidate can deliver on that promise? If I'm known for anything, it's fighting and winning the Battle of Light Rail in East King County. That was coalition building, that was politics, that was law, that was getting things passed at the ballot, engineering, delivery, finance, and doing it all with a lot of partners. You can write it today. I was on that from concept to opening. By the way, I had to push the agency to open the starter line on East King County. They wouldn't have done that without my encouragement. I helped to form the first, with a coalition, the first ever homeless shelters and permanent supportive housing and a lot of affordable housing in East King County. And we'll talk about these issues, but I will say over and over again, thank you, Seagulls, that I would like you to ask yourselves as we're talking tonight, how do you know we can deliver on the things we're promising you?
I just don't know how these seagulls get in our studio. It's so strange. Let's talk about money. Last month, interim King County Executive Shannon Braddock warned that the county could see major reductions in funding in the coming years due to changes from the Trump administration. Federal cuts, including Medicaid cuts, could mean hundreds of millions in potential losses for King County. Property taxes are the key source of revenue here, but right now the state has a cap on property tax hikes. The county can raise them only 1% per year. Any higher requires voter approval. Let's start with you, Councilmember Balducci. During the last legislative session, lawmakers proposed raising that cap to 3%. That proposal didn't move forward, but it could come back. Would you support raising the property tax cap in order to bring in more funding for the county? Or do you have any alternative proposals for addressing budget shortfalls?
Thank you so much for the question. That property tax cap that was first initiated through a Tim Eyman-led initiative and then adopted by the legislature has held our spending down below the level of inflation for a very long time and has been the top legislative priority of this council for many, many years. So we're both signed off on we really need more flexibility there. However, the county is largely funded by the two most regressive types of tax, sales tax and property tax, and that's it. And so every time we ask, can we do better for human services? Can we do more for public safety? We're constantly raising those regressive taxes. There have been a number of proposals in the legislature to try to change that. I am 100% on board with working with the legislature where, we have great relationships with, over 100 local and state elected officials have endorsed my candidacy. I know how to work with those folks. We need to work on a plan that makes our taxation more progressive. And that has to come with, and honestly, I'm agnostic as to the type, which type of tax, whatever works and that can build enough support to implement it. And we're going to have to build public trust to believe that that doesn't mean we implement this new thing and just keep raising property and sales taxes. There has to be a trade-off. And finally, I would say we have had some real challenges with our spending and an audit that I hope we get to talk about tonight. We've got to get our own house in order and be able to show the public that we are making good use of their money so that they can trust that with more of it.
Well, we will be asking about that audit. Don't you worry. But first, 45 seconds to you, Girmay, for a rebuttal.
No rebuttal here. You're not going to find daylight on this issue, in my view. If you were to rank the 50 states in the United States based on how equitable their tax code is, we would be number 49 out of 50, which means we have a very upside-down tax code where we fund our governments primarily, like Councilmember Balducci said, based on property taxes, sales taxes, and fees. And of course, that disproportionately impacts middle income and low income people. And so whatever we can do as a top priority to advocate for tax reform, that would be my top priority. Make sure that we have more progressive options so that we can offset some of these regressive options that continue to burden our working class families and people. That would be a number one priority. But to answer the question in the short term, if I were to only have one tool of fixing this 1% cap, yes, I would advocate for lifting that 1% cap while also making sure that we are more effective and efficient with our dollars, as my colleague said.
Thank you. Girmay, you've previously stated that you support raising the property tax. We just talked about that. I do want to talk now about spending choices and the audit that you, council member, you both brought up. Specifically, the findings that grant funding distributed by the county's Department of Community and Health Services was potentially not overseen properly. So the audit found that while taxpayer funding awarded to community organizations almost doubled over the course of 5 years, DCHS did not properly oversee the recipients of those grants, many of which lacked experience and were considered high risk. This resulted in possible fraud and unapproved payments. These were mostly grants related to services for youth, including diversion from the criminal legal system. Rick from Bellevue texted us to ask, what did you learn from the recent audit, and what will you do differently as a result of what you learned? And this first one goes to Councilmember Zahilay.
Yes, thank you for the question, Libby. The results of that audit were unacceptable. They were flat out unacceptable. We as government have a paramount duty of protecting taxpayer dollars. And in that instance, we clearly saw that taxpayer dollars were not being protected. We need stronger financial controls. We need more accountability. We need more oversight. And we also need to be fair to the people who work at DCHS who do this hard work of distributing resources, because a lot of the issues were policy decisions. You know, we got lots of money from the federal government during the pandemic. We were trying to push it out as quickly as possible because people were struggling out on the streets. But it's unacceptable that more oversight was not promoted in that time. I released a plan long before the audit results came to fruition called King County Delivers, which is a plan exclusively dedicated to government accountability, efficiency, and transparency, because that would be a central theme of my administration. And now I have supported our colleague Councilmember Dunn's legislation to strengthen oversight and accountability, and even included some additional amendments to it to make sure that we push it even further. And through this budget season, whether I'm elected King County executive or not, I will be fighting for things like an Office of Internal Audit so that we can proactively audit our departments, not just one part of DCHS, but all of our departments, to make sure money is being used wisely. I'm calling for proactive quarterly reports so that we can show people, hey, we collected this much money from you. This is what your money was spent on, and these were the outcomes, so that we're spending, that we should be celebrating at the point of outcomes and not at the point of spending.
Councilmember Balducci, your response, you have 45 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. A few things. First of all, I want people to know that this audit covered 36 contracts out of almost 600 contracts in this particular human services bucket. We do not yet know the extent of the problem, so we are not in a position to promise or scale up solutions that will work yet. Job one of the next executive has to be a full audit of all of the contracts, and this was something that I proposed. It has not yet gotten traction, and I will continue to push for it because I don't know how we solve a problem we don't fully understand yet. The second thing I will say is I was very proud to be praised by, if it's okay to name another outlet here, the Seattle Times, for calling for action immediately, because that was not happening when this audit first hit. We have to lean into action. We cannot achieve our goals unless we are transparent and accountable to the public. Laundry lists of things that we will do, that we should do, have to be willing to own it and to really, really lean into action, not just words.
Councilmember Balducci, still on the subject of the Department of Community and Human Services, but shifting to the issue of mental health care and substance abuse treatment. This department is overseeing a big expansion of those services in the county. It's funded by a $1.25 billion property tax levy. That includes 5 new 24/7 crisis care centers, the first of which opened in Kirkland last year. There's the 988 response line. There's the mobile crisis responders that have been expanded. The county touts that there will be somewhere to go, someone to call, and someone to respond when somebody is in crisis. But that outlet, Seattle Times, they report that there are growing pains when these new programs have been integrated into what is really a fragmented web of like state, local, federal services, all of which generally don't share, especially medical records, which seems really hard. If elected, what would you change about how the county is approaching mental health and addiction services?
It's a really big question. hard to answer in 90 seconds, let me just say. But the crisis care centers is a really wonderful innovation that is filling a need for people who are on the streets, who are in crisis, and who are saying, yes, I need help. The first one that was opened, I want to say I'm very proud, was actually a coalition of East Side and North End cities, some of them in my district, that I helped to fund initially. And county joined as a partner after the fact. We actually haven't turned a shovel of dirt on one of these yet. We still have to deliver. And the speed of delivery is a problem with King County, something the next executive has got to fix. We've got to deliver on our promises. There's a piece missing. To speak about the system, there's a lot missing, but one piece that's absolutely missing in this system is people who are in crisis on the streets and are unable to raise their hand and say, I need help now. When they are unable to manage their behavior or their crisis, then what? We have the jail and we have Harborview, and that's what we have. I've been proposing, and as executive will pursue, a third place that is, hey, you're in trouble, you're violating the law, but we're not going to book you into jail. We're going to put you in a place where you can get clean, you can get treatment, you can get connected with housing or whatever you need to stabilize so that we can help move people who are chronically on the streets out of that revolving door. With regard to, I love that you asked about sharing information. When I was the director of the county jail system, this was a huge issue because we deal with a lot of medical records and mental health records, and you need people, when they come in, they lose connection with their services. We need to fix that gap so that people are warmly handed off and always being served regardless of where they are in their transition.
A crow is stickler at
Sorry.
4 o'clock.
Yeah,
45 seconds to you, Councilmember Zahilay, for a response and your take on what you would do differently with mental health and addiction.
Yeah, Libby, I think your question perfectly captured a big part of the problem. Last week, we hosted one of my first policy town calls called Breaking the Cycle, and we're talking about breaking the cycle of addiction, homelessness, crime, incarceration, that never-ending cycle that we seem to see. And I brought together some of the experts on the ground who see what the issues are. You know, people in the healthcare world, people in the housing world, people in the jail world. And they told us that the two primary problems is, number one, of course, there's a supply issue. We need more permanent supportive housing. We need more health care. We need more mental health services and so much more. All of that is 100% true. And there is a connectivity issue. All of these assets need to be talking to each other more, and we need to close the gap so that when somebody leaves the jail, they're not just discharged. When we know that the vast majority of people who we call repeat offenders have overlapping substance use disorder and mental health issues, there needs to be a warm handoff. There needs to be
And
connectivity.
that's time.
Oh, yeah,
Very
that's
insistent,
fast.
Siegel. Let's move on. The youth jail has been a topic of controversy and most recently, agreement on the King County Council. In 2020, former County Executive Dow Constantine pledged to close King County's Youth Detention Center by this year, 2025. That date was later pushed back to 2028. He called it a system rooted in oppression. Things have changed. Last year, the King County Council voted to maintain the Youth Detention Center indefinitely. Councilmember Zahilay, you originally ran for county council, including a promise of ending youth detention. In an interview with The Stranger prior to your first county council election, you said that putting kids in cages is not the most effective way at rehabilitating and restoring them, if that is our goal. You voted in favor of maintaining the detention center last year. Can you talk about why your position changed, and would you end youth detention if you became King County executive? Would you work towards that?
We have two important goals on this topic. Number one, we want to keep our communities safe. Number two, we want to make sure that we set our youth up to succeed. In 2019, what I advocated for is let's move away from this big centralized secure facility and open smaller decentralized secure facilities. I think some people misinterpret that to mean that I was against secure buildings. That has never been my position. So when we had the opportunity last year to clarify that position and show that, yes, we actually still do need a secure building and we need to reform what happens inside, I did seize that opportunity. I think it's unacceptable when I go downstairs in the youth jail and the young people come out of there and tell us they're feeling dizzy and disoriented and unable to manage their anger when they get out of confinement. We know that there's data that shows us that youth brains are harmed by that kind of environment. So no, I do not want a youth jail that is just a baby version of an adult jail. We need to make it more therapeutic. We need to make sure it is integrated with community services. We need to make it more educational. And so transforming what happens within the context of a secure facility has always been my goal. And now I just don't want to do the trouble of citing smaller facilities and finding the budgets. That is a whole lot of trouble. And I think we can do that with the existing building that we have now. So if that's the evolution that you're describing, then yes, I have evolved on that. But still, we need to transform this, and we need to maintain a secure building for community safety reasons.
Councilmember Balducci, I'm going to also give you 90 seconds on this question because it's a slightly different question. When the county announced a plan to end youth detention in 2024, that involved replacing it. And we talked about this just now. Councilmember Zahilay brought this up. It involved replacing the detention center with a receiving center and group homes. You said at the time that, quote, we ended up with recommendations that are actionable and implementable and likely to work. Why do you think those recommendations ultimately were not a solution for replacing the youth detention center? Was this a failure of imagination or process, or is it simply not feasible to actually end a centralized youth jail?
Yeah. So I think this is an area where it's fair to say that there is that distinction between us that you were looking for. I have served as the director of the Department of Adult and Juvenile Detention. I worked within this system for much of my career. And my belief is that jails, like law enforcement, like courts, are all necessary infrastructure that we need in order to have a safe community when crime is happening, when people are harmed, when there's violence. But that is not how we get to a healthy community. You get to a healthy community by investing up front, by investing in young people and education and jobs and the things that make people successful and remove desperation. But I will say that quote is fun for me because I was talking about a plan, and the plan was called Zero Youth Detention, and I encourage people to go take a look at it. It was a plan put together by Dow Constantine. There were a lot of recommendations in that plan. Many of them we have implemented. Some of them we have not. It was not only about shutting down the juvenile detention facility. I was the person who advocated that we make that detention facility modular, meaning it was built in a way that if we are successful in reducing the use because we're doing better things for kids and they're in better places, we can put a curtain wall behind any one of those housing units and put a door to the outside and use it for something else. We built in the incentive to make it smaller. And I believe that that is what we should do. We should continue. When I started with King County, we had about 200 kids in juvenile detention every night. Now we have got less than 50, usually. We're doing the right thing. We are helping youth succeed and not locking them up. But we need to do more, and that's what I would do as executive.
Just because this is one of the few places I think that we've heard a bigger distinction, I want to give you 30 more seconds to talk about this, Councilmember Zahilay, and then we'll also return to you, Councilmember Balducci, on this. 30 more seconds. Councilmember Balducci is saying that this is one of your biggest areas of difference. Do you agree?
I don't think so. I didn't hear much of what I disagree with in her answer, and I want to reiterate that I agree that the biggest investments have to be upstream before young people come into contact with our criminal justice system. As somebody who grew up in South Seattle public housing, I've seen the many checkpoints for intervention in a young person's life that could have redirected them on a different path, on a healthier path, whether that's more after-school activities or more job opportunities or more mental health services or family reunification programs after a young person leaves their home. Those are all things we need to invest in.
30 more seconds to you, Councilmember Balducci. What do you mean that that's a point of difference?
Well, I'll just say I have observed that my colleague did run for office on closing down the juvenile detention facility, did run on redirecting funding from police. And however you feel about where those policies or the politics were at that time, he has changed tremendously. I heard him say, I just held my first town hall with some experts. My colleague is in learning mode. I am in performing mode. I have been performing for over 2 decades. I do not need to learn on the job. And this is a big job to be learning on the job. So I would suggest that there is a difference in that way and in where we have been in our level of consistency.
Moving on, because homelessness is always one of the top concerns for listeners and for voters, of course. In August, the Seattle Times reported that the King County Regional Homelessness Authority was investigating complaints against its CEO. Kelly Kinnison has been leading KCRHA for less than a year. and is the fifth person to hold the job since the authority was created. In recent years, KCRHA has shut down a signature program. The former CEO said that the organization had too many cooks trying to weigh in on what it can do. A listener who is also maybe known to the audience, Andrea Suarez of We Heart Seattle, texted in with this question about KCRHA. And we'll start with Councilmember Zahilay on this. How would you evaluate the effectiveness of that agency, and would you change anything?
I would say that there are some criticisms that we have to be careful about in levying against the entity, because if we don't have enough permanent supportive housing, if we don't have enough emergency housing, if we don't have enough roofs on a supply side issue, that entity is never going to be successful. And so first and foremost, we have to continue to work to scale up all of those options. At the same time, we can't go out and ask the public and our regional partners to scale up those resources if they've lost trust in this agency, right? They have to see that it works. And so first and foremost, we have to show that it works. I think we need to proactively audit the entity to show that every dollar spent is resulting in a measurable outcome. More people leaving the street and into stable housing, staying in that housing for a significant period of time, getting the services they need to a point where they're reducing their emergency room trips. Those are the types of outcomes we need to look at. And I believe absolutely that we need to do a reset on this, because it's not going to be successful if our regional partners, our private sector, nonprofit sector, and the public are feeling like all they see is chaos and more HR issues. Those are all issues that need to be addressed. And so I am fully committed to the regional model. I think this is what we need. It's a regional issue, so we need a regional response. At the same time, we need to go on a countywide tour and make sure that all of our stakeholders have had their say on what it would take for us to get buy-in from all the stakeholders that need to be involved to make this a success, and then chart a new path.
Just because this is such a big issue, and we're going to move on to the lightning round after this, let's give 90 seconds to Councilmember Balducci. Again, how would you evaluate the effectiveness of KCRHA, and what would you change?
I'm going to come at this a little sideways, but I'll get there. I believe that this is one of the top issues that the next executive has got to do something about. It is a shame on our collective communities and country that we allow so many people to be suffering on our streets. I have been working on this for a very long time. I am proud to have spearheaded a sub-regional effort that created lots of homeless shelters, lots of permanent supportive housing and services in East King County where there was none before I became mayor. And that's the path. The path is to have alignment. Regionalism is the right approach. KCRHA was conceived as a regional approach, but we need to have the same goals. We need to have agreement on how we're going to get to those goals, and then accountability about how we're getting there. And we haven't had any of those things. When I was the chair of the county council for the 3 years of COVID, and one of our first board members for KCRHA stepped off, I assigned myself. And I have been there trying to make KCRHA work, very close to it for a while. I am not sure if this agency as constructed can deliver. I don't blame the people there. I blame the fact that we spun it up very fast and said deliver, as opposed to being thoughtful and deliberative and setting that agency up for success. But we got to set whatever we're doing up for success. And I have been there ever since. When my colleague became the chair, he also assigned me to KCRHA. So I want to continue that work. I want to take the experience I have succeeding in this in another part of the county and build on those partnerships and success to make KCRHA what it should be.
Thank you for those thoughtful answers. And we're going to move into a lightning round portion, because we are winding down here and we want to get to a couple more issues. The lightning round is going to be a little bit faster. So no, big, long. We're looking for generally one word. You might get away with a sentence. Try to keep it to one word.
Where are the seagulls?
So, we know what could happen if we don't. Yeah, that's exactly what could happen. Okay, so first question, we're going to start with you, Councilmember Balducci. Rate how Sound Transit is doing on a scale of 1 to 10.
This is multifaceted. Too many courses in that question. We're doing great on some things. 10 on getting across the I-90 bridge. There's trains on it right now. But I would say we are doing a 3 on long-term financing for the rest of the program.
Lightning round.
Sorry.
You're going to get away with a sentence,
Yes,
Councilmember
yes.
Zahilay. Rate how Sound Transit is doing, 1 to 10.
I'm going to just take the happy medium and say a 6 because absolutely they are delivering a lot of very popular services. And when they do it, we do it really well. And at the same time, the budget issues and the cost overruns and the delays are absolutely a problem.
Okay, question number 2. We're going to start with Girmay Zahilay here. Do you support low barrier supportive housing? Yes or no?
Yes.
Councilmember Balducci?
Yes.
Number 3, does the King County Sheriff's Office currently receive sufficient funding? Yes or no? We'll start with Councilmember Balducci.
No.
I would say yes now that we just passed a budget to allow that.
But we didn't pass it.
Okay, we'll move on. Lightning round. That'll be another a question for another day. Number 4. Let's lighten it up just a little bit, starting with Balducci here. The Seattle Mariners are headed into the playoffs. Woo! I don't know if you heard. Reportedly, an Etsy witch hired by a fan helped break the late season slump.
Yeah.
With that in mind, what is one local curse that you would like to fix with a spell a la the Etsy witch?
Okay, I'm going to violate the rules entirely. I actually helped the Mets win the World Series in 1986 by burning a series of articles about the Boston Red Sox. So been there, done that.
Are you saying that you are an Etsy witch?
Etsy didn't exist in 86.
Okay, Councilmember Zahilay, it's hard to beat that.
The curse of the Sonics leaving. I want to break that, bring back the Sonics.
Good answer. Okay, final one. My friends over at KUOW's Booming, they have considered, will the light rail make Bellevue cool? Finally, Councilmember Zahilay. I'm an East Side girl. I can ask this. Come on.
I'll say yes and shout out to my colleague for all her hard work in making it happen.
As a former mayor of Bellevue, I cannot concede that Bellevue is not cool yet. But the light rail is going to make it so much cooler. Yeah.
Okay. So cool all along, Balducci on the record with that one. We're going to go to closing statements. 1 minute for your final arguments here for this audience on KUOW and here in the studio. Councilmember Balducci, first to you.
Thank you again. I really appreciate this discussion. I want to say to the listeners of KUOW, again, look at this county. 2.3 million people, massive housing affordability problems, intractable homelessness problems, need to make more progress on giving people access to mental health care and drug dependency treatment and public safety resources. And you get to choose who's going to run this big, complex county with all our challenges and opportunities after having the same leadership for 16 years. I come to this job with strong values, proven experienced leadership, a suite of accomplishments that you can see in the world today that are moving us in the right direction. And I am proud because of this to have earned the broadest set of endorsements from labor and business, most of the labor unions representing our employees because they know who gets the job done, public safety leaders, human services leaders, housing leaders, and all of the transportation agencies that have endorsed in this race. They know that we can get the job done. I'm here to do it, and I really do hope to earn your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Balducci. Councilmember Zahilay, 1 minute to you.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank KUOW. I know that we are going through very challenging times right now with the federal funding cuts to public radio and the attacks on freedom of speech. So thank you for continuing to show up and doing the amazing work that you do. And that is just one piece to the giant tapestry of challenges that are up ahead of us, and the King County Executive and King County government, along with its 18,000 hardworking employees, have a powerful role to play in being partners in solving problems. I have a track record and the vision and the relationships to deliver from day one. I do have that track record of thousands of people around King County have more money in their pocket because we work to deliver an increased minimum wage. Thousands of people in underserved areas like Skyway have more affordable housing, community centers for the first time, expanded public transit, more affordable homes for the first time because of our work to deliver. Thousands of people are going to have access to mental health and addiction services because of our championship of the Crisis Care Centers initiative, and we want to take that work, build on it, and continue to solve problems into the future. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you to King County Council members Girmay Zahilay and Claudia Balducci, your candidates for King County Executive. Thank you so much. And remember, this is our first debate, KUOW's first debate of this season, not our last. You can find all of our election coverage on the Soundside podcast feed, on the KUOW app, or on KUOW.org. Ballots should be arriving in your mailboxes in about 2 weeks. Happy voting, everybody. Thank you.
Yay.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org or on your favorite podcast app.